Hey, it's TDA, and today in the Oddsparks it's time to start finally making something that looks like a proper factory. Now in order to do that I completed everything from tier 1 and 2 in terms of quests as well as the monument. So we have a whole bunch of new quests available to us. Let's pick some of them up and get to work. Now it feels like, if I look at the map, that this central area is where I want to be building my actual factory, because we have a waypoint right next to that, and we have all of these building sites that we need in order to make use of some of the special buildings. I also want to make sure I optimize, or automate I should say, my spark production, because I'm gonna have to build a lot of these dudes, so I might as well get a move on that as early as possible. Now I'm gonna keep my little factory over here up and running for the moment. That's producing all of the basic building materials, but we're going to need a whole lot more of those. Okay, first things first, in order to utilize that ancient waypoint here in the middle, I relocated the production line that I had coming from down here. That was a very long route because I can't actually use any ramps over here because there aren't any. To the one over on the left here. So this is a bit more of a straightforward path, and that should mean that this waypoint stays active. Now, that said, the real question that I now have is how many items per minute can I actually carry across one path? Because I have a feeling, considering how slow these guys are, that it's not going to be all that much. In order to test that, I just fully utilize the path over here. I'm gonna place a barrel over there, and I'm gonna just have it run for about a minute to see how much items actually get put into the barrel. Okay, so we're about half a minute in, and as you can see I have exactly 30 wooden logs in here, so it is exactly 60 per minute to completely utilize this path. Now you could argue that that is because I have a logger producing 60 per minute over here, but as you can see this is completely backed up. So 60 per minute is the answer to how many items can I have on a single path for the moment. Now this is going to increase of course as we get more advanced carrying capacity, but for now that is what we have to work with. Now, in order to get my spark production up and running, I need a spark workbench, and I can only place these on these special sites. So let's place one down, and remember we are going to need about 20 wooden logs per minute in order to produce 4 sparks per minute, more or less rounded up. Now, I could of course use the other sparks instead, so the crafty sparks that we can produce in a second. This would increase the production by 50%, so that's quite nice. I'm just not entirely sure we need that at this point. We can always just switch that up once we do think we need it. Now we actually need to get in that wood, and I think considering this is already taking 12 per minute out of this production line, I can just kind of utilize this a little bit further. So I am gonna take this route. So it's gonna be a little bit spaghetti, but I don't think we have any way around that for the moment. And this is going to get those logs inside, assuming of course I remove this little stone that gets in the way, so my sparks can actually move through and get all the way up here. I'm also going to place a little shed right next to this waypoint over here, so I can offload some of the excess building materials that I'm currently carrying around, but that means I'm still able to easily grab them once I do need them. In order to actually build these guys, I also need the ether shards, and I can produce those in an etheric distiller. Now, that actually needs a bit of an input of some... Oh. Now, in order to make this Spark workbench actually do something, we are also going to need some ether. Now, let's see, the etheric distiller is a building that we can set up maybe something like this. And then let's turn the camera a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Build a little pathway over here. And then I think just a single one of you is probably going to be enough. Let's just give him a friend, just so we can do this. We are going to obviously need some sparks in here, and we're going to need to fill this with these pellets that I currently have plenty of. Now, in order to make sure I can semi-automate this, because of course I can only put a single stack in here, let me go here and let's use an item that I didn't actually use before, and that's the crate. So the crate is interesting because it allows both pickups and drop-offs. So if I set one up here, what I can actually do... well, actually, no, it shouldn't be there. It should be on the other side. Hold on. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. There we go. Let's have a little pathway. I'm not sure. Can I actually build pathways that are just one? Nope. If I have a path that's only one, it's actually automatically destroying itself. Okay, there we go. So let's have a little dude on there as well. And then if I place my pellets in here, it's only going to be 4 of them, but this will allow me to supply this thing with pellets, and that's going to turn them into stuff. Now, what I can do, however, is if I want to make sure this always keeps producing, I could place a box in here or something like that in order to further optimize that. But for the moment, I don't think that is really needed. Okay, so this should mean that I now have my basic sparks automated. I can also put in a little bit of a thingy over here. Then let's put down a storage box, and let's make sure there's actually someone working on this production line, so you know you can make sure you drop off the sparks in here. In order to get some of the more advanced sparks up and running, I am going to need more advanced materials as well. So we need the normal stumpy sparks to make crafty sparks, but we're also going to need some of those wooden panels. Now, wooden panels we can kind of mass produce at this point, but I don't have a lot of building space here. I'm actually wondering if I got a bit unlucky with the map. I don't know, but let's have this produce over here, and then let's go over here where we have a bit more open space, and we might be able to use this logger that I just built to make this look a little bit more pretty. Now, let's see. In order to make wooden panels, we are going to need some saw bench, but we are first going to have to, let's see, make some planks, I believe. Yeah. Sawn timber. This is going to produce at what rate? So we can produce 7.5 per minute. That means we need 15 wooden logs. We could have 60 on a belt. So that means I can build 4 of these. I'm then going to put another saw bench right in front of here, and then let's switch the recipe to a wooden panel. Now let's again do the math. This is going to produce 15 per minute. We need 30 of this timber, and that is actually exactly what we're producing over here. So it's a 4-to-1 ratio. That's kind of nice. So all I need to do is put a bunch of you guys on here as well, so you can kind of start carrying all of that timber. And then, yeah, we already had these guys working in here. And that's gonna be the wooden panels that we need in order to make the crafty sparks. Now we have the wooden panel production up and running. I can make myself another spark workbench, put that over there, make a little road between, and there we go. And then all I need to do is make sure we get the right recipe, first of all. There we go. We need stumpy sparks in here, and we need wooden panels. Now the wooden panels are of course going to come from our production line over here. So there we go. Now we have wooden panels being moved there. Maybe just add a third one in there. But that's probably going to be enough. And now the real question is, do I want to fully automate my spark production? Because as you can see, we have a 2-to-1 ratio for the crafty sparks coming from the stumpy ones. But these ones aren't necessarily a lot better at most things than these. So if I, for example, just want random dudes carrying around stuff, I don't need the crafty sparks. I might as well just use the stumpy ones, and then making sure I have twice as many of those is quite worthwhile. So what I think I'm gonna do, I am gonna use a building that I completely missed that I had available last time around. I'm gonna use a crate over here as well. So I am gonna set that up I don't know, something like this, I think. And then if I make myself a little route like that, and again, of course, place a couple of stumpies on there, then what I can do is I could place up to 80 of these and make up to 40 of these. By doing that, and of course, if I want to be able to scale it up a lot more, I can put more in here. This will require me to manually put these sparks in here, but I think that is still preferable over just overproducing the crafty ones for the moment. Now, we are completely overproducing these wooden panels at the moment. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, you know, we are probably going to need them to build stuff. And I can kind of pick up some of the overflow if I build a little container over there, or a barrel. But what I really think we should be doing at this point is making sure we have some of that overflow going to magical storage like this. Now, this will make sure that it goes into here first, and then into these, and once we have a surplus of wooden panels sitting in here, any remaining are going to be recycled automatically. This is going to produce me a tiny little bit of ether residue. Not entirely sure what we need it for other than buying some cosmetics, but you know, we might as well put our overflow production to use. Similarly, I'm also going to put a crate over here because I am picking up these random aphis shards that I loot from pretty much everything that we're killing at the moment. So this will make sure that that can also go into my production for sparks. Okay, so I kind of want to automate the other sparks as well, and ideally do that in a central location so I don't need to run all over the place. But in order to do that, I need to complete this quest, and in order to complete this quest, I need wooden blades and I need fertilizer. Now, the wooden blades I can actually start producing if I turn in this quest to the woodsman. That requires just some wooden panels, so we have plenty of those available now. And then we can start making some blades out of the panels as well as just some timber. Okay, while our little factory is plugging along, let's see what we actually need in order to, you know, build these swords. Now, let's see. We have a wood workshop that we can actually place anywhere, so that's nice. If we put just a couple of stumpies in there, it's going to produce at 2.5 per minute. And that means we are going to need only actually a tiny amount of wooden panels. So we need 5 wooden panels per minute, along with only 1 sawn timber per minute. Now, I'm wondering if we should increase the production rate of this a little bit compared to what we would be getting from this, because this seems like a pitiful amount. Alright, so how about this? I have another 4 sawmills over here that are going to make planks that are going to feed into this one making wooden panels, which is exactly enough to feed into 3 wooden workshops over here that are going to make the wooden blades. Now, I also need the planks, so I'm just going to bring in an entire belt full of logs and just turn that into planks. That's way more than I actually need for these 3 buildings, so I have some surplus here. For the moment, I'm just going to fix that by having a recycling machine, so this is just going to absorb the overflow of production that I will have. Now, this means I'm going to have to bring in 2 full belts of logs, and I'm also going to figure out how I can actually set a dual input over here up in such a way that it's kind of neat and efficient. Using a couple of the additional add-ons that I have now available, I can make sure I have a splitter and I can have a crossing. So as you can see over here, my little stumplings are actually working like intended. Let me step away for a moment so you can see. So this is going to alternate sending them onwards and to here, and this one is going to do the same thing. And as you can see, he just ran right past, and the saplings that are on this belt should be able to just pass by as well. So let's test that as well. They should just be going in a straight line and not interfere with the other path. Yeah, there we go. So all of that should be working like intended. Let's get in some logs. Alright, now this is starting to look like an actual factory. So I literally just put 50 of these stumpies on this path over here. And if you're wondering why I'm taking the long way around, if I rotate this any differently, then the trees are going to get in the way. I think we can cut those down in just a bit, but for now this is how we're going to have to do it. I put down a whole bunch more over here, so everything is working. Look at all of that activity over here. So I am making the wooden panels here. Maybe just add a couple more in here. And yeah, this pathing is actually working like intended. Now, I removed the splitter over here just to make sure that there's no those sparkies kind of getting lost and going nowhere. So this means that half of them are going to go here, then a quarter of them are going to go here, and a quarter of them will reach this one. So that's not perfect, but we're producing way more planks than we need anyway, so I don't think that's going to cause any issues. Now, that means that I do now have the swords in production, so that means we can set up some other things. Before we do that, just a couple of other notes. So you might be wondering why I'm not using the, what are they called, crafty sparks over here. Now the reason I'm not doing that is because now if I ever am able to upgrade the input from my logs, which I will be able to do once I get better carriers, then I can just upgrade the entire production chain by 50% by replacing all of the Stumpy Sparkies by crafty Sparkies instead. If I already use those, I can't actually, upgrade it in the same way. So this is just me being efficient and kind of planning ahead. It's also worth noting that there's a bit of congestion happening whenever these crafties are crossing each other's paths. So you definitely don't want to have more of these on your paths than you need. Because as you can see over here, for example, they are kind of getting into each other's way. Now this clears itself up pretty quickly, but it's definitely not just a matter of spamming as many of them on the path as you can. Okay, so the wooden blades, if I have 20 of them, are going to allow me to unlock the cutter, which is going to turn leaves into fertilizer. And there we go, that is that one done. It's worth noting that off screen every now and then I'm just going to kill some of these spunnies and get a whole bunch of these pellets from the larger ones and from the foresty ones, and some just shards from the small ones, and it only takes like a couple of minutes to do that, and now I can make up to 100 more of the Stumpy Sparks. But yeah, you do every now and then need to go out and farm at this stage of the game. Anyway, we have some more of these cutters, and we can therefore make the cutter building. Of course, I meant the wooden swords, or whatever they're called. Anyway, this will allow me to turn leaves into fertilizer, which is the thing we are going to need next. Okay, and using the rewards from that quest, I can set up a couple of these crates over here, so I can put my leaves in there that I've been collecting all the time. And now these are going to be turned into fertilizer over here. Not really a lot of automation happening in this particular part of the factory, but at least we have a new resource. Now I'm going to need that fertilizer, because I need 10 loamy sparks and a lot of wooden blades in order to unlock 2 new buildings. And well, I am going to need the fertilizer to make those. So let me throw those in over here in the shrine that we have dedicated to the loamy sparks. And these are created 5 at a time, so this is actually not going to take all that long. And the triple wood workshops making those blades is really paying off, because otherwise this would have taken forever. This is going to help us unlock the recipe for bark in the saw bench, so we can make logs into bark, but we can also just straight up mine the bark from the loggers themselves. Now, I am actually wondering, can I switch this one in town to something else? Huh. Doesn't look like I can. That's a shame. Maybe this one? Maybe? Ah, okay. There we go. So I can actually switch this one. Huh. And with all of that in production, I can now start looking into mass producing my sparks. All I need to do is make one of each new type, and then a whole bunch of these crafty ones, as well as some of the new items that we have now in production. The thing about these loamy sparks, by the way, is that you can make a lot of plants with them. So if I throw them around, they will burrow and they will start multiplying a whole bunch of plants. So this is an extremely easy way to get all of those leaves for the fertilizer. I hadn't actually visited the shrine yet for the choppy spark, but as usual, it just turns on and you get one for free. And look, these guys are actually a little bit better at fighting, and they also do a different type of weapon, and they can chop down a larger tree. So all in all, this is going to give me a lot more flexibility on what I can remove, what I can put down, and where I can go. Wow, okay, that's a whole bunch of stuff, but that should now allow me to start making my own sparks wherever I want. Okay, so let's see. The loamy sparks I think I'm gonna just make over here with a couple of these normal stumpy sparks to make them. I don't think I'm gonna need a whole lot of these. That might be famous last words as usual, but yeah. And they also don't need any other sparks to be produced, so that's interesting. I could in theory completely automate this, but I have a feeling I will need my fertilizer elsewhere as well. Okay, so what's up next? Well, I really want to start making some carry sparks, and we're going to need a lot of these because, you know, logistics is pretty much all we're doing right now. That also means that I should probably completely automate this if I can. Which means I'm gonna need to be able to bring in some lumber. I am going to need to bring in the crafty sparks, because that's what they need. Which also means I'm gonna need to bring in the stumpy sparks automated to the crafty sparks to make those. Oh boy, well, this is going to be interesting. Okay, so how about this? I make a little route all the way to here. That is going to make sure that, first of all, I'm going to fill up this box with crafty sparks, but then those crafty sparks are going to be transported into this machine, which is going to produce the carry sparks. And I also need to bring in the normal spark, the stumpy sparks that is, from up top to here. So I guess I am going to do that. There's a stone in the way, that's really annoying. I guess I'm going to do that like this. So this way it's going to collect 100 of those, or 160 of those in these things over here. And then this dude is going to carry it all the way down here, up here, up here. We can delete this little piece of road. There we go. And then it's gonna come down here. Now, let me think for a moment. We are going to be able to do this, like this, and this. That actually means I can remove, there we go, remove that, also remove those, because we no longer need to do this manually. This will be completely automated. Look, there's the first one already coming in, and that means that I will start collecting the crafty sparks over here, and thereby also collecting them in this building over here. Okay. Now, what else did you need? You needed some timber. I'm producing that over here, but at this point I think we can be a little bit smarter about this. Okay, so let's see if we can be smart about this. I already have timber production over here, and if I extend this like this, then in theory, this timber production could reach this building as well. However, I'm already producing exactly enough to fit this single building over here. So I am going to have to go in here, take out the normal stumpy sparks and put in crafty sparks instead to increase the production by 50%. Now, the way I understand it, this is also going to increase the amount of wooden logs that I need to supply, but luckily I now have these carry sparks to increase my production. So let's go in here, let's make sure we upgrade this production to 90 per minute so I can actually supply this stuff. And then, how do I do this again? I kind of recall all of them at the same time. Super efficient, there we go. And we can start throwing some of the carry sparks that we got as our quest reward. So, let's see. I actually don't know how these guys look. Oh. They are kind of awesome. So yeah, they are pretty fast. I think they're about the same speed as the other ones, to be honest. But they should be able to carry twice as much. Now, them by themselves is probably not going to be sufficient to keep up. So I'm just going to throw some of the normal ones in here as well. But of course, now I am going to start producing some of those carry sparks, so I can kind of fill up and replace them as needed. I also increased the production line that is carrying in the normal sparks. And well, while this is kind of doing its job, let's focus on to our next target, because there is one more type of spark that we need to start producing. So let me grab some material so I can actually make my workbench. There we go, and let's place that down over here. Once again, let's put some sparkies in there. And we are going to be producing the choppy spark over here. Now, this is going to require, again, the normal sparks, as well as some swords. Now, the nice thing is I already have the sparks now on their way. So all I need to do is make sure they share them equally. So I can make a little route like this. I do need to make sure this actually connects to that road. And then from down here, I can just bring these up, connect that like this, and that should bring in the swords. Then all I need to do is, as usual, set up some production. And there we go. Now we have the choppy sparks completely automated as well. All right, there we go. So this thing has now completely filled up. So my first crafty spark has been delivered. Now, where are my wood pieces though? That is not really working like intended, and that's mostly because these guys simply can't keep up with the supply. So that's interesting. I actually need to put more carriers on this belt so they can pick stuff up fast enough in order for it to actually be delivered. And yeah, I know it's not completely automated because I still need to feed the distiller, but that's actually super easy to do. So, not completely automated, but close enough. I am getting in a steady flow of these carry sparks now, so I can start to upgrade my production lines a little bit. And let's see, well, if I would have had a carry spark over here, I would have also been able to see that I have at least 7 choppy sparks in production as well. So, all in all, that is kind of working like intended. Let's make sure we have that fully automated as well. And yeah, now there's just one thing left that I want to try that I've unlocked a little while ago, and that is using the floors. Now, this is hopefully going to make our factories look a little bit more, you know, professional. So, let's see. Ooh. This takes a lot of stone, people. Okay, let me gather some more stone and get back to you. Well, the stone gathering was a little bit too tedious for my taste, so I figured, well, maybe I can go with the wooden floor. Now, I'll let you decide for yourself whether or not you like this. It's definitely a lot easier to get those sawn planks. The only downside is that it makes it really hard to tell where the paths are going. So, is this an improvement or not? I honestly couldn't tell you. But, once again, you can make this just from wooden planks, which are very easy to mass produce. So at least this is a more viable way of actually, you know, flooring your entire factory. And there we go, we have these choppers in production now, and if I remember correctly, we should have a couple of these larger elephants are running around. Beelephants, I think they're called, right? Doesn't matter, but yeah, so let's do the all attack sign. There we go. And let's see if they are indeed a lot stronger than their counterparts. Yeah, they nearly killed that thing before it even did its AoE attack. So yeah, chop, 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 chop. I only lost 2, and that was with a very inefficient fight. And there we go. So yeah, that is definitely a lot easier way to fight your enemies than what I had before. And of course, these enemies aren't particularly dangerous, but I've already found while scouting to the north a little bit that there are some enemies that, yeah, hit a lot harder than what we saw until so far. So, all in all, that means that we have a pretty decent factory set up here in the middle of the map. We have a lot of additional production going, and last but not least, I now have a lot of quests that will give me some more quality of life upgrades that we'll get into next time. I'm really happy about how this initial factory turned out, so I hope you enjoyed this as well. Let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions or ideas for this playthrough as well. And as always, if you are still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.